You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating talk radio. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
Doctor, tell me true. What's a heart like mine supposed to do?
And we're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. 1-877-Dr. Dahlia, 1-877-DOCDALI. So this article caught my eye. It's written by Tasting Table, and it lists the 13 sandwiches that got families by on a budget during the Great Depression. This caught my eye because remember I told you that when we were pretty poor, my mom had to figure out what to feed us before we went to school. I hated the school lunches, but I got a bad whooping when they found out I wasn't eating them because they really wanted me to eat at school because it was included and free at the time. So for breakfast, they would buy a loaf of bread and then they'd have us run into a McDonald's and grab the jellies that would be sitting there. And then they would make jelly sandwiches for us for breakfast. We had some better years. Things had changed, but then we had bad years again. And, you kind of look back at, what you would eat and what your family tried to ensure you could eat to get your calories. And you kind of scratch your head, especially now. Parents are like, you need to eat vegetables. You need to add this brie cheese or these sprouts or these, the average family when I was growing up, no way. It was let's get Tang into you and maybe some PB&J. But it's interesting, some of the sandwiches they talk about. So one was the loose meat sandwich or the made right sandwich. It is the precursor to what we think is now Sloppy Joe. The key difference is that it eschews the ketchup or tomato, usually included in the latter's sauce. A product of Iowa, the made right emerged in the 1920s and was embraced after the Depression for its convenience, cheapness, and sheer flavorful meaty goodness. Unsurprisingly, the loose meat sandwich remains popular in the state that created it. Like ground beef, think like leftover meat, throw it in a sandwich, makes sense. Sadly, they would eat lard sandwiches. I remember my grandmother would have chickens in the backyard. So she would kill the chicken, cook it, and then she would take the chicken fat and not throw it out. She would fry that up and cook that, and that was a starch we were supposed to eat. Lard was used a lot by individuals who were of that time. And, back during Depression times, cost butter and cooking oils were more expensive. So they could take the fat from meat and then use that as a lard staple, making lard sandwiches. Not very healthy, but yeah. Now, the PB&J, peanut butter and jelly, that has roots probably far beyond what we have evidence for. But they say it became very omnipresent during the Great Depression. They said over the course of this list, peanut butter became a major staple across the period due to its low cost, and jelly wasn't that much expensive either. In New York in the early 1930s, emergency kitchens would serve PB&Js to hungry children. In fact, when the New Deal later saw free lunches delivered to 14,000 schools across the country, the menu also included peanut butter and jelly. Now that we know about the sugary content and the white bread and the lack of nutritional value, we don't encourage it as much. But have I made my kids a PB&J sandwich? Absolutely. And they love my PB&J sandwiches. They are good. Deviled ham sandwich was one of the ones they used during the Depression. The deviled ham, even though it had been around since the 19th century, they took advantage of it and the canning technology, began to crop up in a sandwich, filling in recipe books in 1930 when a can of the stuff could be bought for only a few cents. It survived the Depression, going on to become an old school sandwich spread that, I remember deviled ham as a kid. I don't remember that since, though. But I guess a Depression era variation was known as the hiking sandwich filling, combined deviled ham, mayonnaise, mustard, and peanut butter. Well, that sounds disgusting. Pimento cheese. Pimento cheese sandwiches, which had a mix of cheese, mayonnaise, sweet pimento peppers. It was adopted as a frugal standby from the Depression through World War II. It could be bought prepackaged, but some economical home cooks in the American South instead prefer to make it from scratch. The tradition exists, and pimento cream cheese is still a beloved Southern spread. It's interesting. I like pimento cream cheese. I don't like the pimento sauce. So that's a little different. The Chicago dog. They say today a Chicago-style hot dog is an emblematic, heavy-loaded sample of the Windy City. Looking at it, they said, the only thing you can't be certain isn't on a Chicago. Oh, yeah, the ketchup. Chicagoans don't usually put ketchup on their hot dogs. And they say traditionally an all-beef wiener will beckon hot pickled sport peppers that you can only find in Chicago. Mustard, pizza, pickle, relish, tomato, onion, celery salt. And so I guess during the Depression, hot dogs were in use. Banana sandwich. This I remember doing. With banana sandwich, you get your white bread and you put banana on it. You could add mayo or not. But banana sandwiches were cheap. And it gave you substance. It put something creamy onto the bread. So, and, vitamin C is in bananas. So, that potassium and vitamin C. So, it gives you some really good vitamins as well. The bologna sandwich. The bologna sandwich, right? My, something has a first name. It's OSCAR. Okay, anyway. So, we have been seeing bologna sandwiches. I'm not a bologna fan. I really don't like the taste. I like salami better than bologna. But it could be made from meat scraps that would otherwise be discarded. Bologna was cheaper than other deli meats widely available. And because it was expensive and, inexpensive and had less than glamorous reputation, having dented its popularity in some quarters, though, they said a fried bologna sandwich is still considered a go-to Southern comfort food by many. Peanut butters and pickles. I don't understand the pickles. That I don't. I understand the peanut butter, but people are putting pickles into their peanut butter, probably to add the tartness. See, to me, pickles are different. There's some pickles that taste like a vinegared cucumber, and there's some that taste really pickly. So I don't know. A bacon grease sandwich, putting grease in bacon. No wonder people are having heart attacks. An onion sandwich. Meatloaf sandwich, poor man's sandwich, was peanut butter and raw onions. Wow. Actually, that's making me hungry. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
We are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877 Dr. Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making this show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So we have something called rich envy, where we see all these rich people, we see these celebrities. You watch Below Deck, and these rich people are on a yacht, and they get all these fancy meals and a big comfortable bed with goose down comforters. And we watch all this, and we get sour. And we look at our lives going, okay, well, my life, is and wrong. Too many people's depression and anxiety is because of this perception that the rich have the most wonderful life. If you are rich and wealthy, yeah, you might be able to afford the best doctors, and you might be able to. They say money can't buy happiness. Now, I was my most happy when I was, poor. You're in love, and I didn't care what money I had in the bank. I mean, Corey and I struggled until we, finally were able to, start making headway with our student loans and all that. But I was happier when I worked at Jack in the Box, and the cute guy asked me out on a date. That was, some of my happiest times when I was waiting tables and trying to make ends meet. But there's a cure for this rich envy. So when I got married to Corey, it was in the 90s. And it was a rare time where if you guys were on your honeymoon, you would get upgraded to first class. And I was like, well, guys, let's get married every year. This is wonderful. And when you're in a first class seat, it's like, whoa. And when it's free, you're like, wow, oh, this is nice. They don't do that anymore because everybody says they're on their honeymoon and everybody wants to get into first class. And the companies, although Delta is going to try to make a cheaper first class, they say, but whatever. But if you ever did spend a lot of money on a fancy meal, was it really worth it? People have gone to Paris and they're like, yeah, it was nice, but TV and the movies and these celebrities make these things look like it's Disneyland. But nothing's Disneyland like Disneyland. I mean, Disneyland is probably the most realistic, with the exception of the lines, to what you see, on TV. But with everything else, it really wasn't worth it. I would never wear a dress that cost more than a couple $100. I don't even want to spend a couple $100 on a dress because I'm going to get ketchup on it or ranch dressing. I'm sorry. And if there is no ranch dressing or ketchup offered at the place I'm going to, I probably don't want to go there and eat. Okay, I like my ranch dressing. And so somebody's like, oh my gosh, well, you could have a gown. The rich get to wear a gown for $2,700. I don't want to wear a gown for $2,700. Well, you get to wear diamonds. I don't want diamonds. I don't really, I don't want that. So you need to figure out what is it that you want and what is it that you don't. And so one cure for this, looking at what they're doing and what they're experiencing is, it might take a little work, but do a pamper day or do a pamper trip. All right, as opposed to, doing your Disneyland and your this and that, maybe save up and do like a little bit of where you get to feel that, okay, I'm going to, feel rich for a day. What is it like to have somebody drive me somewhere? It's the same as Uber. You have a driver drive you, it feels the same as Uber. Okay, well, good. Check that off the box. I don't need to have a driver. What does a fancy meal taste like? It's small. To me, I get the same taste at Outback. Now, Outback's getting kind of expensive, but I could make a steak that tastes as good as some of these fancy places. So, you eat a fancy meal and you're like, they charged almost $200 for that per person. That was not worth it. Look at the bar. Go to these fancy restaurants and look at the bar. you're going to see Jack Daniel, Tito's, Grey Goose. You're going to see the same thing you could get at Costco. You want to feel like you're having a fancy drink, you can make your fancy drink, although I really don't recommend drinking alcohol because of the health risks. But one thing that I did with my family, which really worked, is we did a staycation. So we got a deal on a room that was a suite. And now I hear that the hotels are trying to do that for locals again. But where we would go to a charity event and we would bid on a package, and the package would be such a good deal where you got the suite, you got the show ticket, you got the dinner credit. So we got to have that feeling of what it's like to be in a fancy suite and have a real nice meal. And it was interesting because me and the kids were talking about this years ago. We were like, it was nice, but I can't wait to get home. I like home. The food wasn't that much better. So maybe, if you are looking and seeing what, and it keeps bothering you and it keeps just, pulling at your strings, pamper yourself. Not anything stupid, but, do a staycation or do that night out or do that. And then, you kind of see it wasn't all that. It wasn't that big a deal. The rich make it look like their lives are wonderful. They have to. In order to keep up the facade, they have to be where everybody is. They have to smile. They have to, keep up with the Joneses. And these people are going broke. Do you ever wonder why we don't see a lot of these superstars that were all over? You don't see them. You rarely see them. Why? Well, because they aren't doing their hair and makeup like they used to. They don't want the cameras to catch them looking older. They don't have the weight they used to have. They don't want people catching them, in a workout suit where they don't look like Kelly McGinnis. Very gorgeous, right? In Top Gun. People caught pictures of her. She looks like an older woman. I let her be who she is, but that's all over the place. So these people start to isolate and they hide, not to mention they can't afford their security. I mean, look at how John Lennon was gunned down in the 80s. There's individuals that are stalking you, and you always have to think about security and protect yourself. And if these people don't have that money to be having 24/7 security, they isolate. And their lives aren't that wonderful. And I'm not saying that, you can thrive on the fact that these people one day become miserable. You don't want that. But don't be envious of what they are pretending to, a life they're pretending to have. I could not, even though Michael Fassbender, I think, is one of the most gorgeous men on the planet, I could not probably be married to him knowing that he had to be doing love scenes, right, with, all these women, or Michael B. Jordan, just, having love scenes, and I have to wait at home for him to come home and bring me herpes. No, I wouldn't. That's not a life I want. I want to know that my husband, has not been making out with people for his job. And so, but we always kind of feel like, gosh, if I could have this, if I could have this, if I could have this. Sometimes God has a reason for why we are in our bubble. Now, sometimes we make mistakes. We gamble and then we lose money, and we sometimes we might do stupid, or we become shopaholics and we don't, we rein in our shopping and but maybe as one of your vacation or whatever, do a little pamper day. If you've ever flown, first class, it is nice. Is it worth the money? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You could use the money you're spending to upgrade that flight on something else. But if you have points and things like that and you want to have that experience, I want to pay top dollar. I would try to pull all the coupons and points and things like that to let you have that experience. When you have that experience, I can't tell you, I've been, on some flights that were first class. The food was same movie, same, and I really don't want to drink alcohol. So, with the exception of having a little bit more room, was it really worth it? But if you feel like I just need to know what it was like, and you feel like, well, it's going to whet your appetite for that. And no, I think what it's going to do is make you feel like, okay, you know what? No big deal. In terms of travel, however, I really do believe in bucket lists. And I think many of us are ready for our next chapter if we feel like we lived a life and accomplished, that was full, and that we accomplished what we want to. So if it is your dream to go to Paris and it's too expensive to fly to Paris, look to see if it's cheaper to get to England, because then you could take the tunnel. You know, or find ways, you know, if it's a goal of yours, you really should work to that dream. Crowd, fundraise, you know, talk to friends and neighbors, say, look, for my birthday, for Christmas, don't get me anything, but this is a fund that I wanted you to do something. So we've talked about that. But for those of you kind of, you know, rich envy, don't be envious of them. They're fake, the majority of them, especially the celebrities. And, you know, try to pamper yourself and see how mediocre a lot of it is. 1-877 Doc Dolly.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regenerations. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com.
Hot Shot Secret. Powered by science.
And we are back on the Dr. Dolly Show. 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So, you know, some of you have been very, very frustrated with your doctor. They refer you to a specialist. They won't give you a medication you want. Many doctors are now telling you, I don't do this. I don't do this. I don't manage this. I started to see that. I was trained as a doctor. I was trained where, especially if you're family medicine, you tackle anything and everything. And it wasn't until, you know, a few years into my practice when I'm like, I don't think I have enough training to manage seizures and to manage. I really want to refer to a neurologist and have them co-manage. But it was very interesting because there were some neurologists in my town that wouldn't take seizure patients. And they said, you do it. And I'm like, why wouldn't you? You're a neurologist. Well, because they didn't want to deal with the driver's licenses and the taking people's driver's license away. And they just didn't want to manage seizures. I thought, well, if you're a neurologist, you manage anything neuro. But many neurologists decide to subspecialize in headaches or in Parkinson's and so there's not a lot of simple lines, simple boundaries. You would think it was pretty simple. I'm supposed to know a little of everything and a lot of some and be able to identify what needs to be done, manage as good as I can until a specialist can take over. Or emergent care can take over. And being that I've had ER experience and urgent care experience, I have more of a forte in emergency care. But not all doctors do. Some doctors are much more pediatric focused or neurological focused or insulin and diabetes focused, which happens. But the lawsuits keep happening. So I read about 2 different lawsuits. One was there was a child who had constipation. And so they were, treated for constipation and told to do X, Y, and Z. And I don't really have a lot of details on when the patient finally saw a gastroenterologist. But its child did have imaging. They did some tests. But I don't think the child was referred to a gastroenterologist soon enough. So by the time the gastroenterologist investigated, the child had a mass. This mass, this tumor, was so bad that it already metastasized and the child died. And this was a few years after his initial constipation diagnosis. Now, I don't want to scare everybody that constipation means cancer. But if you have chronic constipation and your doctor says, I want you to go to a GI doctor, that might be why, because they want to make sure they are ruling out a mass. Constipation could happen because of your diet. Maybe you're eating too much cheese. Maybe you're sitting too much. Maybe you're not drinking enough water. Maybe you're not exercising, and you're not having good bowel habits where you're setting some time aside each day to try to go potty. Maybe stand-up desks can help you poop. Things like that. I mean, constipation, there's a lot of reasons for it. But somebody needs to ensure that there's not something else going on that needs to be taken care of or addressed. There was another case I'm reading about right now where a jury awarded $40 million to a patient because he was 37 years old and his blood pressure was 190 over 102. He's only 37. And boy, am I seeing high blood pressure high in a lot of younger people. But in this particular case, the blood pressure was 190 over 102, and he was not given any antihypertensive medication or blood pressure medication. He later gets a basilar ganglia hemorrhage. So he pops a blood vessel and he has a hemorrhagic stroke. The plaintiff attorneys argue that he had cough, and with the hypertension and the cough, he might have had heart failure, and that they should have, with this blood pressure, noticed that something was wrong. There was conflicting entries in the notes between the physicians and the medical assistant. There wasn't another blood pressure recheck plan, no precautions, and apparently the defense couldn't defend themselves, and they ended up, losing a $40 million case. So for those of you that have elevated blood pressure, if you're calling in a telemedicine company, or if you're seeing a family doc, and they're like, look, you have hypertension and severe hypertension. We want to make sure you have a cardiac evaluation. This is why. And I understand things get expensive. One of the reasons why we have Obamacare is because of the doctors of my generation. It's our fault we have Obamacare. And I'm really, really sorry. I'm really, really sorry. Truly. Because what ended up happening is doctors were getting sued left and right in the 90s. And early 2000s for missing things. We had a patient that had severe back pain, and we sent them to the ER, and the ER didn't really do much. Then the patient started to have some weakness on one side. We sent them back to the ER. The reason why the patient had back pain is they had a bleed in the brain. They had no headache, but they had pain in the back. So they actually had a hemorrhagic stroke. Now, we didn't get sued because we were the ones that sent them to ER. We were like, something's wrong. And I'm not saying every back pain is a stroke, but I have seen so many weird cases that I'm not going to say your back pain is because you brought in groceries. I'm going to rule out anything more serious first. I'm not going to run a bunch of tests, but I'm at least going to do a thorough physical exam or make sure you have an evaluation. And I'm seeing this time and time again. Patients are calling up telemedicine saying, treat me for my ulcer. Give me antibiotics. And I'm like, what? How big is your ulcer? How bad is it bleeding? Oh, I just know I have one. A doctor gave me antibiotics online 6 months ago, so I want more antibiotics. Well, antibiotics can treat H. pylori, which is a bacteria that could cause ulcers. But has anybody looked at is this an ulcer? Are you bleeding? Are you going to have a serious GI bleed from this? Is it not an ulcer? Is it a tumor? Is it your pancreas? Is it what really frightens me is pancreatic cancer. By the time we find pancreatic cancer is usually already metastasized. Why? Because the average person with pancreatic cancer gets diagnosed or assumes it's heartburn. So they take Tums or Rolaids or omeprazole over the counter. And nobody's going, this pain you're pointing to is in the area of the pancreas. Has anybody looked at the pancreas? See, how I was taught is if there's an issue with an organ, image it. Ultrasound, look at it. If you're getting frequent bladder infections, ultrasound the bladder, ultrasound the kidneys. If you're getting kidney stones, image the kidneys. If you're getting abdominal pain, ultrasound the abdomen. There's no radiation. If you're having abdominal pain, we can at least, pick up some things with ultrasound. And then if it doesn't go away, we could even do more. If you're having chronic issues with your stomach and colon, get a scope. We have these tests. Why? Because unfortunately, there's bad pathology out there. And the average person calling telemedicine is not getting their blood pressure checked. How many 37-year-olds are out there with a blood pressure of almost 200 systolic? That's stroke range. Now, was he doing stimulants? Was he doing, I don't know. But high blood pressure could put you at risk for a stroke. Not only a hemorrhagic stroke, but a more common ischemic stroke. We need to be doing a better job. So patients are getting frustrated because when a doctor says, look, you're having heartburn. I don't know if it's your heart or not. I want you to go and get checked out. You're having left shoulder pain. That could be your heart. I told you I had a patient who came in with left shoulder pain. I did an EKG. Wasn't really excited about his cardiac risk factors. Sent him to the cardiologist. The cardiologist did a stress test and said he was fine. So I sent him to the orthopedist for his left shoulder pain. The orthopedist says there's nothing wrong with his shoulder. I MRI'd him. Send him back to the heart doctor. So I sent him back to the heart doctor, and I said, the orthopedist said it's not there. What's going on? It turned out they did an angiogram, and he had a dental floss thin lumen. Very narrow. He was about to have a heart attack. And thank God we sent him back to the cardiologist to be more thorough. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
Back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So if a car maker is making a driverless type of model or self-driving model, are they going to want to spend money for a steering wheel and a brake? Now, I would say yes. Okay. Spend the money on a steering wheel and a brake, so at least there could be a manual override if anything goes wrong. Didn't somebody just get killed because one of these driverless vehicles ran into a house and killed the person inside? We're not there with that technology where we could trust it 100%. If it gets stuck, if it goes the wrong way, we need to be able to override and use our human instinct. But no, apparently some regulators are looking at why do we need the steering wheel? Why are we paying for the clutch? Why are we paying for the car? Should know when to reverse, when to. No. I want to drive. I want to drive. In fact, the biggest regret I have is I don't have a manual. I don't have a stick shift. I really miss driving stick. I love that. My truck and oh my gosh, that was driving. Now it's like, okay, I turn the wheel. I want to drive. I want to really feel it. So apparently on an interview on CNBC Squawk Box, the head of the nation's auto safety oversight, Jonathan Morrison, the administrator of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, says he supports innovations in autonomous vehicles, including doing away with some features that are currently mandated, i.e. brakes and steering wheels. He says if you're developing a vehicle that is designed never to be driven by a human operator, does it make sense to require manual control of the vehicle? He says, I think the answer is pretty clear there. Yeah, the answer is yes. Well, yes. Yes. You have to have are you going to do that with a plane? You know, they want to remotely operate our planes. You're not going to have the ability for somebody to be able to jump in and, set the flaps and drop the landing gear and do what they need to do. So they say some self-driving cars, like models intended for ride-sharing fleets from companies like Uber and Tesla, are already steering in that direction. They're not designed for human driving. Waymo can be taken over by a remote human driver. Removing brake pedals and steering wheels would mean that you could not take over yourself. You would have to rely on mission control. What if the car stalls? What if it's in a dangerous situation? So one thing, so let me just tell you really quickly here. They say makers of autonomous vehicles have been urging action on changing requirements for driverless cars since 2019. In 2022, NHTSA revised rules for some types of self-driving vehicles and how they must be designed. So now this is looking at, brake pedals and steering wheels. He's not responsible for policing the industry, but there now, there might be, sort of regulations that might change. One image, I need to find this video. I don't know if I posted it, but I got to find this video. It's a robot. I think it was in Japan. I'm not sure. And the robot was dancing in front of an audience. And its moves were really human-like. And you're watching this and you're like, that is incredible. That's like a human. And it's able to move and do whatever. Well, then its foot hits one of the steps. It falls. And then it lies there limp, like it's dead. Something as simple as a little misstep couldn't function. And that's the issue with technology. How many times has your iPhone not worked? You're like, what's going on? Maybe I need to shut it down and reboot. Or my computer not working. Or how many times do I have to take a hammer to something? Tech has a lifeline, just like humans do. And what if your tech or your battery or something is about to die and you don't know, or it's acting up? We always have to have the override. And then, just in general, what's happening with our kids? So for me, learning how to drive was imperative. And I had very, very strict parents who didn't want me to drive, before I moved out and when I was 18 and stuff. Not because they thought I was a bad driver, but they were really overly protective. But thank God, school required driver's ed. So they had to let me do driver's ed so I could learn how to drive. They taught me, they tried to do teaching or whatever, but man, you go to driver's ed, you're like, all right, I'm ready to drive. And they really didn't want me doing that, but they went along with it and taught me a little bit and stuff. But I wasn't able to, get my first car or do most of my driving until I was over 18. And then one of my buddies taught me how to drive stick and all that. And it was in the Thomas and Mack parking lot. They didn't have those cement dividers. And so it was just all flat asphalt. And I really credit the Thomas and Mack parking lot for allowing me to learn how to drive stick. I had it down in 5 minutes. It was really easy, really natural for me. But these kids, they're Ubering. They're getting rides. They're not purchasing a car because it doesn't make sense to purchase a car if you could Uber or if you don't have a job. And I really worry then, what are we doing now with driver's ed? I mean, we have to teach people to follow the rules. The idea of learning how to drive isn't just so you could go to the tailgate and you could go to the game on Friday night. It's teaching you a lot of different functioning. You have to follow rules. You have to learn the rules. You have to be aware of your surroundings. It teaches you safety. It teaches you about drunk driving. It teaches you about impaired driving. It talks to you about how to protect people in your car. There's a lot you learn at driver's ed. And if we start to see schools go, well, yeah, we're going to the autonomous car, nobody's driving anymore. No. We need to teach everybody how to drive. I think we all should learn how to operate a tractor. We should learn how to operate farm equipment. We should learn how to operate things. I am blown away that people can't even use a dishwasher in their house. What is going on? And so, yes, an autonomous vehicle, I think back to Total Recall in the 90s, where you had that taxi, and the taxi told you what to do, but then the taxi started to act up. I remember my husband going, that's what I want. I want to just hop into a car, not even think about it, be able to sleep, and it just take me home. And we're getting there, and we're actually already there. I just don't trust it. And I have never had a piece of tech that didn't fail on me. I've never had software that didn't fail. There has been glitches with any single thing I've had in the last few decades. And then you want me to trust my children or grandchildren later in a car? I don't have grandchildren yet, but I'm going to want to drive them around, and I'm going to want to do the driving. Now, are people idiots? Do you have some people where they can't drive? Do you have some people that don't follow the rules or are impaired, or you have people with disabilities? We do need the technology, and I think that would be extremely important to be able to have that technology where if somebody wants to get somewhere, they have the ability to get somewhere, when they can't drive. So I am still in support of us having, this exist. But for the love of the Lord, don't not allow there to be that manual override. We're not there yet. We don't trust it until you can prove to me that my laptop can last forever, and it never does. Or that my car can. You need to tell me that, cars never last forever. All right. Well, then when it starts to act up, am I going to, how is that going to look? And am I going to be on the middle of a highway? I live in Southern Nevada, and we have the 215, and nobody drives the 215, with the exception when there's traffic, lower than, 65, 70 miles an hour. That's not when I want my car to start its demise. And you need to prove to me that and don't just say, well, why don't you just, turn it in after 50,000 miles or after 100,000 miles? No, that's not good enough. And then that's also very expensive. But for those of you who have kids that don't drive, teach them how to drive. Get them driving. Get them, there's so much you learn. And have them get a driver's license, even if they don't have a car. Just do it. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away. Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.